for our first show tonight. And right now, I don't know the score, really don't. Right now, no further ado, Jim Croce.
I'm using these finger picks. This is both Jim and Maury used for their guitar duo that they did when they were on the road. Specifically the thumb pick, you'll always see Jim Croce playing with a white thumb pick. I learned to play guitar by listening to Jim Croce, James Taylor, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and all of them used finger style guitar playing. And the song that was popular the night that Jim died was this one. It's been 51 years since the plane crash of Jim Croce in Louisiana. I went back to the spot. I took a Beach 18. I went back to the spot and I played Time in a Bottle on that spot. I recorded it. I spent 2 days in that town researching the plane crash of Jim Croce. We just had the anniversary. September 20th, 2024 was the 51st anniversary of the plane crash and the loss of Jim Croce, his band, his publicist, and all the people and the pilot on board that airplane. I'm going to show you just a little bit of video. I'm going to save most of this for a full-length documentary that I'm going to upload a little bit later on. Here's a little bit of video just to give you a little bit of a tease, then I'm going to tell you what really happened. Here we are at the spot, the exact spot where Jim Croce died in 1973. This is the Beach 18, and it's sitting facing basically north on the direction that the accident airplane ended up hitting. And I'm going to play a Jim Croce song out here with the Beach 18. This particular one is just a few serial numbers difference. It's an E18S, just like the one Jim Croce died in. And this is the exact piece of ground where the airplane came to rest here that night. So I got the recording from the concert that was played that night. It was northeastern state Louisiana, a little college town. They invited Jim Croce and his band to come in and play an evening concert. It lasted almost an hour, and they played 10 songs. I have a copy, an audio cassette copy of that entire recording, all 10 songs. What is the only song not played on that set list that night? Well, it's Time in a Bottle. And what's the reason that they didn't play Time in a Bottle? It's because they saved it for the encore. Well, the truth is, after this concert, there was a little girl in the audience who was the sheriff's daughter who had taken a shining to somebody in the band, and the sheriff was not happy about it. When the band broke for their encore, they were planning to come back out on stage and play their #1 song, Time in a Bottle. That's when the sheriff informed them there would be no encore. You guys better get back to your airplane, get in your airplane, and if you guys don't get in your airplane and get gone, we're going to drug sniff your airplane and haul you guys to jail if we find anything. Well, that made the band scramble, and they called the pilot. They had already reserved 8 hotel rooms at the local hotel. Room 104 was where the pilot was. They called him. He was asleep in his room. Here is room 104. They called him. He had no ride to the airport. There was no Uber and there was no cab. So he ran with his suitcase back to the airport. He met them at the plane. They threw everything in the airplane and they fired up in a hurry. They were in a hurry to get out of town, and that's truly what happened. The pilot fired up both engines, taxied out for runway 16, rounded the corner, and pushed the power up. 4,000-foot runway. The airplane, this is a Beach 18, this is an E18S. It did not clear the trees at the far end of the runway.
The Beach 18, when all of the folks got on board with the pilot, they started at this point here on the ramp. The pilot hurriedly cranked up the engines. They taxied out to the edge of 7 and 25, runway 7 and 25. He turned right, he rode along the 7 and 25 till he got to the intersection of runway 16 and 34, which you can see off in the distance right over here. And then he turned, and without stopping, the story goes, without locking his brakes up to check his magnetos, he hit that intersection rolling, and and he was checking his magnetos on his way down the runway as the aircraft started gaining momentum and speed, and he started flying. Finally, probably before he got off the end of that 4,000 foot 1634 runway at that time, and the challenge for him then was to try to ascend to a height that would have got him over the trees, which he probably couldn't see because it was at dark and he was unfamiliar with the aircraft. And off the departure end, the pecan trees was the eventual issue where he started to make a crosswind turn and then apparently stuck his wingtip, his left wingtip, into the top of one of those pecan trees.
I'll save all the rest of the details for a documentary later on, but I got a lot of video footage from that town, those people, the people that handled the bodies, the people that handled the wreckage, the first responders, the college people. I was there at the gymnasium. Here's a little bit of video from the gymnasium. This is the spot where the last Jim Croce concert occurred, September 20th of 1973. You know, last week's video had a little bit of information about teardropping to the downwind, that phenomenon we talked about. I'm going to show you a real quick clip from this video that I took from somebody else's channel here. You know these guys, and they're talking about this very concept and how bad it is. This is teardropping to the downwind, and it makes no sense.
I want to dive into at least one real kind of like hot topic, and it seems like right now there are a few things blowing up the internet when it comes to general aviation more than pattern entries. This is the thing of the day that is kind of blowing everything up. And one of the topics, my good friend Brian Schiff has also been talking about it. You've been talking about it. Everyone's going crazy about it. Tell me about kind of what's going on with pattern entries and this thing that people are debating about teardrop entries.
It's
why on earth is this the hot thing?
I think the short answer to that question is probably ForeFlight, to be honest. It's just because they call it a teardrop and they have such a large number of users.
Well, this week we had a first, I believe, teardrop to the downwind fatal. This was a Cessna 206, a Civil Air Patrol aircraft out in Nevada, made a touch and go, going to make left-hand traffic. He's climbing on the crosswind leg, about to turn downwind when he got hit. Well, guess what? He got hit on his he got hit on his left wing by an aircraft in the right descending downwind. I built this graphic, and it is not necessarily correct. The only thing that is correct for sure is the path of the green, which is the 206. I got that from ADS-B data. It's the 3D graph. Now, I drew in the yellow. This is what I think happened based on witness reports and what the two guys in the Cessna 206 said. They survived it. They got hit on their left wing, and they heard this pilot call in entering the downwind. He should have been entering the downwind off their right wing, and instead they got hit off their left wing. This is the graphic right here. I believe this Swift pilot entered on a right descending teardrop to the downwind. He was in a right descending turn to enter the downwind, a very close left downwind in his Globe Swift. We'll cover this accident again in detail when I get to the September data. This is the most recent one in the month of September. It's the last one on the list. I'll show you the list here right now. This is the Globe Swift and the 206. Nobody on board the 206 got hurt, and we're very thankful for that. Could this be our very first teardropping to the downwind fatal? Maybe. I don't know, but it sure looks suspect to me. You know, at the very end of August, we had this other 206 out in Idaho perform a botched go-around and flew it into the trees, killed both of them. I just recently obtained this video. This video is the same pilot, the same aircraft, the same runway, and did the exact same thing. This is not the accident sequence. This was 7 days prior. I want you to look at this and listen to the commentary that goes along with it.
All right, here's an example of an earthbound tongue-tied misfit coming into Johnson Creek. He's way over his head. He's very fast right there for sure. I got this from our friend. Let's see, he's going to touch down a nose gear. There's one. There's a second nose gear touchdown. There's his third touchdown. And it's going around until it go around flaps, but the flaps aren't moving. So he's going to sink right into the trees. Leg out. Yeah. He shouldn't be flying. That's Charlie Brown.
This is the same aircraft, the same pilot. His name was Charlie Brown, ironically. He botched it the same way, landed long, bounced, and porpoised down the runway, and elected to go around very, very late. He survived it 7 days prior. On this particular one, at the very end of August, he did not survive it. Speaking of August, I've had to go back and update. I'll show it to you on the screen here. We had one person from an accident in the month of August who has recently passed away from his injuries. This is the float plane out in the state of Washington that landed with the gear down and flipped over. First responders did an excellent job in getting to him. They pulled him out. They gave him CPR. They got him barely alive into the hospital. He did survive on life support for quite a while. I believe at the very end, a decision was probably made, but that individual has since passed on, which converts that accident, which was previously just an accident, now it converted it over to a fatal. So we had to go back and update August by the month, by one number for August. That bumped everything up in September. Our totals, I'll show you our totals. Here's the month of September on the screen here right now. And I'll show you at the very end of today, we have 109 fatals in the first 259 days. A year ago, we only had 258 days consumed, but that's because of the leap year. We've got 19 less, and our fatal accident rate for today is 12.835. Fatals per month, whereas at this exact same point a year ago, we were sitting at 15.09. Now, keep in mind that 2023 was a banner year, as best we've ever done. We're on track now to better last year's record in total number of fatal accidents. Fatal accidents is what's driving your regulation, your insurance rates. Number of fatal accidents is your key figure in driving insurance actuarial tables and costs. When we can stop killing ourselves in airplanes, we got to convert our accidents from fatals to just simply being incidents, and we will help ourselves a lot. Besides that, the good thing is you still get to stay alive. I did the math. We would have to do 22 fatals per month on average all the way through the end of 24 just to get back to what we had last year in 2023. I don't think we're going to have 22 fatals per month for the all the way through the end of 2024. So I think my conclusion is I think it's pretty safe to say and go on a limb by speculation that I think we're going to do better in 2024 than we did in 2023. We would be hard pressed to do 22 a month, although it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's certainly entirely possible, but I think we're on a good track. I think our trend vector is pointing in the correct direction on this. You know, last week's thumbnail, we had a little bit of fun with that just to prove a point that any of you old geezer guys are going to look at the thumb and click on it. Kind of worked out, kind of didn't work out. Not necessarily true. I think some of this audience is a little more sophisticated than that. Last week's video did okay. It was not stellar. It did not break any records. I had a lot of comments on, haha, that's funny. I had a few that said, we don't appreciate that. It was an experiment. I just wanted to try it. But basically, I was trying to show... a few weeks ago, I talked about the little girl, Kay, that flies the YouTube channel Fly with Kay. No disrespect intended. I was just a little bit disappointed that the FAA used her as a spokesperson and the script that she said where they want you to talk to FSDO and ask questions. Let me play that for you again here, and I'll explain further. This is no disrespect or anything towards Kay. I think she's a fine individual, although I don't know her. I think she has a fine YouTube channel, and I think she does a great job flying her little airplane. Nothing to do with that. I'm just disappointed that the FAA chose that person as a spokesperson to send an incorrect message. And here's the message that I think is incorrect.
My biggest advice to you as a pilot, if you have a question about something, don't be afraid to talk to the FAA. And the biggest reason for that being is they are there to help you.
Now, the truth is, if you call FSDO and ask for an opinion, they won't give you one. That's what they call a legal interpretation. You'll have to write in and get a legal interpretation. If you got an opinion or a question or anything that's not set in stone, you cannot get an answer from FSDO, and that's not what they're set up to do. So that advice right there, let's work with FSDO and call them and ask them to answer all our questions. They don't want to do it, and they're not going to do it. So that's absolutely incorrect. Kay is a nice person. I apologize if you felt like I was coming across hard on Kay. I just think that FAA should use a little bit more reasonable methods for determining how they should spend their advertising dollars and the message that they want to get across.
Just be civilized on the plane.
Yay!
Just don't be intoxicated on the plane.
Yay!
respect the flight crew on the plane.
Yay! Just follow the safety guidelines on the plane.
Yay! Just keep your hands to yourself on the plane.
Yay! Just be disruptive on the plane and give up my money. Oh. What?
Also, last week after the Sunday night live thing, by the way, if you're checking in the live chat room here tonight, make sure you say hello. I always enjoy doing that. Always have a couple thousand people in the live chat every Sunday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. After the video last Sunday night, we did an experiment with a Zoom call. We're going to try it again. My error, I put the wrong Zoom password. I put an O instead of a 0 in the password. Still about 30 people got in and figured out what the password error was. For the rest of you, I sincerely apologize. Here's the screen for tonight. We're going to do the same thing again. It is just an experiment. I thought it was very, very educational. A lot of you got to speak and give me an opinion or tell me what you liked and what you didn't like. I'd like to do that again. It's limited to 40 minutes and 100 people. So the first 100 people that get on that Zoom call after this video is over, you're welcome to jump in there. I don't have a commercial Zoom account, so that's the freebie one that I'm using. It's only 40 minutes and 100 people can be in there. Make sure you stay muted until you're ready to talk. I'll give you plenty of opportunity to speak your piece and say hi. If you have a question or a comment, that Zoom thing was a lot of fun to do. Remember Tenerife, November 5 through 8. We're still doing Tenerife. If you'd like to go on this trip, we now have a large group and a lot of logistics taken care of for the Tenerife trip. That's the one I'm going over to in early November. I've always wanted to go see the spot where these two 747s ran together. I've been studying the accident report on that and trying to get a little bit more insight on the world's largest aviation disaster. Quite the story there and quite a few things that still don't make any sense to me. I'm really excited to go over there, see the spot, see the town, and talk to some of the locals over there. Many of the people still in Tenerife, very close to that airport, are still the residents that were there living at Tenerife North Airport on the day of that fatal accident in 1977. On the schedule, I advertised last week for meeting opportunities, and I got a whole bunch of inquiries and things. I'm going to sort through those and get those scheduled out for the fall. I get my next X-ray on October 10th, so I've scheduled my very next out-of-town visit for October 12th. That'll be Jacksonville, Florida. Holiday Aviation. I'm going to put this up on the screen right here. Holiday Aviation. This is where you RSVP. There's no cost involved. I'll be there for the afternoon and evening, hanging around and staying overnight. If you'd like to come down, Holiday Aviation in Jacksonville, Florida. That's not at the Jacksonville International Airport. That's at the little airport right there in Jacksonville. But Holiday Aviation, they're an AQP flight school. Friends of mine run that. Meredith and Dana Holiday run that. They got about I don't know, 60 or 70 students all the time down there. Pretty busy little flight school. I've known them for several years. Great operation. Look forward to seeing some friends down there. We're going to talk about AQP. We're going to talk about the impossible turn. Is the impossible turn possible or not? We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to play the banjo, eat some hot dogs, and have some fun. If you'd like to show up, I'd sure love to see you. Jacksonville, Florida. That'll be October 12th. An interesting thing happened this week. A guy named, well, I won't tell you his name, but he's 80 years old, been flying since 1968. He has 8,000 hours, never a commercial pilot, never flew for a living. He has 8,000 hours. He flew in a little private airplane. I'll just say it's a little single engine airplane. Did not want his name or any video or anything like that, but we went out and flew his little airplane. At 80 years old, he did an amazingly nice job, but we had this conversation about DMMS, and he wasn't sure, so we put this placard on his airspeed indicator. Here's a picture of it, and we placarded it. My question to him was, if we went out and flew the traffic pattern, could you maintain not less than DMMS in the traffic pattern and not at below 2,500 feet? Could you not bust DMMS, and could you stay less than 30 degrees bank? He said, yes, I could. Now, the main question is, can you fly a 3-mile final, red over white, fully configured on VREF to VREF plus 5? And he said, of course I can. His main question to me was, do I have throttle available? Yes, you have throttle available. I'm not going to mess with you. You use throttle, flaps, yoke, whatever you want to do. I want to see you maintain red over white, VREF to VREF plus 5 all the way in. And I said, could you do it? He said, yes. I said, okay, what's your VREF? He had no idea. He's been flying 8,000 hours and he has no idea what his VREF is. He had the speed that he always flies, but he didn't know what VREF was. The other thing was, he told me that he always climbs out at 80, which is VY. And I said, well, it sounds a little bit low to me. We went out and flew. After we flew, we pulled out his POH. I marked his airspeed indicator. Here it is right here on the screen. I marked his airspeed indicator. Turns out his VY was 87 and the DMMS is about 88. So now he's got a airspeed indicator that's appropriately marked. I posted this picture on AQP and Coffee. I got one guy that made a little note here, and he said bank angle limits are unproductive and dangerous to his spouse. Bank angle is not in and of itself dangerous. I agree with the rest. Especially important is always flying in coordination. He did not want a bank angle limitation. So I sent him a note and I said, well, please call me. I'd love to talk to you about it. Excellent guy. And his name is Billy Bree. We spent an hour on the phone talking about bank angles. Bank angles for students. Now, Billy is an accomplished Air Force guy, aerobatic pilot, and he was saying that in the traffic pattern, he has no limit. For his students, he does not preach a limit. And I said, well, what would you be okay with? And he said, well, 60 degrees becomes aerobatic. And I said, well, that means that you're going to allow your students up to 59 degrees bank angle in the traffic pattern. And he said, if they want to, they're permitted. So we disagree on that, but we ended up on the phone. And then here's the graphic that I made because of that. I put this thing on AQP and Coffee, and I said, DMMS is VY and VG. 2 lines, 5 references. Forget the actual number. Just look and see how you're doing. Dan's policies below 2,500 AGL. Here they are on the right-hand side. Not less than DMMS on final, not less than VREF. 2, not more than 30 degrees bank. 3, ball in the middle. DMMS is 1.404 times your clean stall speed. VREF is 1.3 times your dirty stall speed. It's a policy. It's a very conservative error on the side of safety. This is for students, low timers, beginners, private pilots. Your 30 degrees bank on your ADI is marked. It's very easy to see. We just want to know what the rules are. Us student pilots and people just learning to fly, they want to follow the rules. You just have to tell them what the rules are and give them a method of measuring it. Not less than DMMS, well, that's easy to see. Not more than 30 degrees, well, that's easy to see. If that's what the rules are, ball in the middle, that's what the rules are. Those are my 3 rules for students. Not less than DMMS, not more than 30 degrees bank, and keep the ball in the middle. If you're not doing those things, guess what? You're a go-around airplane. And you need to know how to fly a go-around properly and not stall your airplane on the go-around. Here's a picture somebody sent me of their panel right here, and I made a comment back that I think their VREF is a little bit low, and they wrote back right away and agreed. So mark your panel, DMMS, it's easy to do. I updated this guy's panel, the guy that came in to see me. He was an excellent guy, a Vietnam vet, and I truly enjoyed spending the time. We ended up eating dinner 2 nights in a row, courtesy of him, and I appreciate that very much. Great guy. We had a lot of great aviation conversations. He went away with a little bit new information and a new healthy respect for DMMS and bank angle. I said, you're 80 years old. You've been doing it an entire lifetime. You do it however you want to do. I just would sure like to see you stay alive and stay off my list. You know, Dylan's little Cherokee is in for annual. We turned it in for annual a little bit early just because he's flown so stinking much on that airplane in the last 1 year. We found a couple cylinders that were down just a little bit. Not dangerous. They're down around 68, 66. So after further inspection, we pulled those things off. Now I just picked up 2 overhauled Lycoming cylinders to go back on that airplane. That airplane should test fly sometime next week. We got those cylinders from Don George Aircraft in Orlando, Florida. A guy named Mark down there did a very nice job of working with us and helping us on all that. If your airplane is low on cylinders, that's not an endorsement. They didn't pay me, and in fact, I didn't even tell them I was going to mention. But Don George Aircraft hooked us up with 2 beautiful overhauled Lycoming cylinders and all the pieces and kit that goes with that, including the pistons and the rings to go back on there. And we're going to torque those nuts down and do everything. Even the through bolts, all that kind of stuff is going to get properly torqued. And we'll test fly that thing with mineral oil next week and go again. We'll see what we get, but I'll bet you that solves our compression problem on cylinders number 1 and 4 next week. I'm really kind of excited to do that. We'll put Dylan back up in the air. Speaking of Dylan, he just took his CFI written exam, got a 96. How about them apples? He's still got one more little written to take, but the goal is to get him a CFI certificate by the end of the year. I think we're easily on track with that. And then once my leg is healed here, I'm going to get him his multi-engine instrument commercial certificate. And then he's got to hit the road and go out into the actual work world and get a job, a real job out there someplace. And we'll be working on that. Great kid. And congratulations, Dylan. 96 on that written. That's not too shabby for a grider. I do all this traveling around. I got DTSB to support me. If you'd like to support the DTSB, it's a 501c3. Your donations are tax deductible. Here's the thing on the screen. You can mail in a check or whatever you want to DTSB. All those funds are being run by Matt Evers, our CPA accounting firm. We've got a 5-person board of directors who can vote where that money goes. I can't touch the money and I can't vote. It's purely safe. They have to vote to approve. The only thing that they can vote to approve is money that I've already spent. If I turn in receipts for what I've spent my money on, then they get to vote whether or not Dan will get a reimbursement or not. We can also use that money for course development, software, and things that we have to further develop the safety program that I'm on. I appreciate that. If you want to do something much simpler, $1 and $2, I appreciate that. You can send that directly to me. It's not a lot, and not very many people actually do it, but if you'd like to and can help, that is greatly appreciated. A lot of people do. Every now and then there's somebody that sends a 5 or a 10 or something like that, knocking it out of the ballpark, and I appreciate that. Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. Those electronic methods off your phone or iPad go direct to me. There's no fees, there's no commissions, there's no service fees. So if you give me $2, I actually get $2. I probably make $50 or $60 off of every video, and that's totally fine. I appreciate that. Every little bit helps. I spend a lot of time and effort making these videos and traveling to these places. I want to do more traveling, more speaking, more investigating, more stuff in the near future. I'm totally excited about the whole mission of DTSB and getting back out on the road. I got more speaking engagements I would like to do, and I think it's going to be totally fun. Now, let's take a look at September. I'm going to put this on the screen here. Here's the September data. And you've already seen everything all the way up through last week if you've been following. I'll start with number 8 on the list. That's November 643 Romeo Sierra. That's the Beach, A36, Louisiana. Greg Manuel, age 73, lost an engine on takeoff and went into the golf course. He stalled it, and it hit hard, caught fire, and exploded. No way to survive that. The next one, 8 Charlie Kilo, that's up in Alaska. That's weather and terrain. 2 people on board. Danny Presley, age 70. I think he was scud running and battling both the weather and the terrain up there when that happened. The next one, ironically, also in Alaska. This is a JP Flyer, which is basically a PA-12 November 1202 Yankee. It was a test flight. John Bergstedt, 71 years old. Here's a picture of the airplane right here. On test flight, I can't tell if he lost an engine or if this was a control issue or an elevator that fell off. We got no idea so far. All I've got is a very few pictures, very few videos of this. I'll show you just a little bit of that right here. A horrible accident for John up there in Alaska, and a loss to the community. I had several people reach out and tell me what a great guy I was. Now, the very last one, I'll put this up on the screen. This is the one that we've already talked about. This is the Globe Swift, the Midair. Don Bartholomew, he owned this. This was Mr. Swift. This guy owned all the Swift stuff. Here's Don Bartholomew's website. I believe this is most likely, and I could be wrong, it's still too early to tell, but since this Cessna, who was climbing out, he went from upwind to crosswind. He was in the process of turning crosswind to downwind when he got hit on his left wing. Remember, the Swift is a low wing, the Cessna is a high wing. If Mr. Bartholomew was doing a right descending teardrop into the downwind, here's the graphic I've got. It's about the only way that I can think of to explain how the Cessna got hit on the left wing. The people in the Cessna definitely heard Don exclaim that he was going to enter the downwind. Well, I would have been looking for him to enter the downwind from the right wing, from the right side, entering the downwind at a 45. This teardropping to the downwind has people crossing the top of the field high and then performing a right descending circle in a left-hand traffic pattern. It perfectly sets you up for a head-on. Is this what truly happened? I don't know. I do have one person that called me that witnessed it, that definitely saw the littler airplane, the low-wing airplane, in a right-hand turn just before impact, and definitely saw the littler airplane catch fire in flight. After impact, it exploded. This individual saw the fire, but he definitely saw. This person was not a pilot, couldn't give me any specifics on pilot type things. but he physically witnessed the accident. Couldn't tell me much about the Cessna or where it was coming or where it was going, but he saw the little airplane in a descending right-hand turn just before impact, and that's a huge clue for me as to what happened. That's why I've drawn this graphic. I'm going to put the graphic back up on the screen one more time. This is teardropping to the downwind. This is a ForeFlight thing. They've drawn magenta. I'm not saying Dion was using ForeFlight, but I'm saying this phenomena that is sweeping the nation called teardropping to the downwind, where you're performing this right descending turn in a left-hand traffic pattern, is a recipe for disaster. Is this what happened on this one? I don't know. Certainly could be, but I guess we'll find out. We do have data on that. We got ADS-B data on the Cessna. We just don't have anything on the other airplane right there, so we just don't know. That's it for tonight. I'm going to get out of here and get this video up and on the air. I'll consider doing the Jim Croce full documentary video a little bit later on. I've been kind of squirreling that stuff away for a little while. Jim Croce was one of my favorite musicians of all time. I learned to play with a thumb pick based on Jim Croce, just exactly like I did. I'm also going to mention real quick that I just got in the mail here this week from YouTube. They sent it to me. This is Dan's silver play button for reaching 100,000 subscribers. Not that subscribers mean anything to me, but minutes watched means everything. It says Probable Cause Dan Grider for passing 100,000 subscribers. It's YouTube. So that's going on the wall. Kind of cool. They send that to you free. I didn't even know it was coming, but once you pass that, they send it to you. I guess it just took this long to figure it out and send it to me. Even amidst all the copyright flags that I have for using other people's music, I guess they like me because they get to keep the money off the copyright and I don't get any of it, and they still get to play their ads on there on videos that I use somebody else's music and they give me a copyright flag. They don't care about that. They really don't care if you use somebody else's music. All it means is that they're going to put ads on it and they get to keep the money. I guess that makes me a premium YouTuber according to them. But anyway, this is kind of cool and I've got it. It's going to go on the wall. Appreciate you hanging in here with us tonight. Here's the thing for the Zoom tonight. It's going to start in just about 3 minutes from right now. And I'm going to jump out of here and get the Zoom thing started. Make sure you stay muted. Make sure your video screen is on. We want to see you. Make sure you are ready to speak because I sure would like to have somebody else talk besides me. I'm going to get out here and get this thing going here for my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, Dan Grider. Probable Cause.